Assalamu alaikum. Today, August 25th, marks the 1 year anniversary since Hurricane Harvey hit, exactly a year ago, August 25th, 2017. If you're in Houston, Texas, US, or even abroad, you must have heard the news. You must have heard it on TV or scrolling through social media. It was the biggest hurricane to hit the continental US, to hit land in this country, I think since Katrina, which was in 2005, if not the greatest ever. It caused an average of 30, 40, or even greater than that inches of water to be sitting on the ground that's like over 3 feet, right? So many places saw water up to 2, 3 feet in their first floor, or at least out in the yard. Some people's couches and furniture and so on were ruined. Carpets, walls up till here were ruined, had to be mucked out, and I'll talk about that in a second. Some cars were under. Some trucks sometimes could barely even cross some of the streets. Many of the streets were underwater. Houston, you must have seen the pictures and videos. Houston and like downtown Houston looked like a swimming pool or a lake. It was definitely something. They refer to it as the 1,000-year flood. Not that it happens only once every 1,000 years, but that it's very, very unlikely. Only one over 1,000 chance of it happening, I think, in every hurricane season. And this is now like the beginning of 2018's hurricane season. So we'll see. Definitely very memorable. Definitely, hopefully once in a lifetime thing. I don't know, but I want to share a little bit of what's happened here in Houston since and during that time. I remember turning my little apartment, whatever it is that I have, into kind of a makeshift shelter. I didn't have people that came over, but I had a bunch of supplies and packs of water and first aid and flashlights and batteries and that kind of stuff, as you can imagine, all over. And I was actually able to help people that weren't as prepared. That couldn't get to the store or got to the store too late. I mean, literally imagine big stores like Costco and Walmart and so on, where you'd have like a place, whatever, as big as a school, an area that big, full of water, drinks, food, supplies, etc., completely empty. I mean, I went to the water section and it was like there's pretty much no water left. Luckily, I got a bunch of cases. I was able to help out friends and neighbors, and many people had their cars at water level or almost at water level when the water was a foot and a half, 2 feet off the ground. Smaller cars, we had to push them up onto the curb or up onto higher ground. That was fun and exhausting. I got to go to different shelters in Houston. So George R. Brown, these are places that if you're in the area, if you're local, you know. These are some of the landmarks in Houston. Houston being one of the biggest cities in the country. George R. Brown Convention Center, where I go like regularly, multiple times a year for different conferences and conventions, for meetups and networking events. They used it as a shelter. Hundreds and hundreds of families and kids and moms and so on were there. I got to go and look around and help out with some of the kids and help out with food and some stuff. I went there multiple times. I went to NRG. Again, many of you around the country will know NRG as the place where the last Super Bowl was held, right? The final game for the football season. That same NRG. There's a stadium. It's kind of like circular oval shape, and then there's a big rectangular center, kind of like a conference hall or big auditorium type thing. And that was also turned into a shelter. Some hundreds and hundreds of families there. There had these little beds and cots and place for food for everybody. And again, I was taking care of the kids and doing all that, doing whatever I could to volunteer. There were a couple other places in Houston. Lots of mosques and churches were shelters, or at least had storage and food that they can give out. Masjid Tawheed, northeast Houston, right in the middle of the ghetto. That's kind of part of the idea. They have a mosque there in one of the most dangerous areas in the country. And they go out and they give dawah, they propagate, they speak to people about their religion, and they also give out food and so on. In Hurricane Harvey, we had tons of people that came there. Maybe I'll show some footage. Congressman Sheila Jackson Lee came by. We set up all these tables and makeshift tents, and then we were giving out food and stuff. That was good. That was like a week or two after Harvey. I'm trying to remember. Our mosque got flooded at least a few inches, so they had to redo all the carpet. But that whole area here, close to the medical center, that's south or like central Houston. Was one of the mosques on the list of shelters that people could go to if they needed to, because people lost their homes and houses. I don't have all the statistics. Maybe I'll put a link or an infographic, but it's somewhere between 200,000 and 300,000 people lost their homes. That's huge. It's like over $1 billion damage. I don't remember. Was it 1.3 or 13? Some huge number. Billions of dollars of damages, and how many hundreds of millions of dollars came in of aid from the federal government, and obviously all the politics and economics behind it. Maybe I'll share a link or so. Yeah, it's been a year since, and there's a lot to talk about. Maybe a few more things. There was a memorable incident where I got in a friend's truck. I had been stuck in my apartment for a few days because I don't have a truck, and the roads are closed. This guy came in a big truck. We got in and we thought we were gonna go out and help people, and we were able to deliver packs of water. We were trying to help a couple with their trying to get medicine from their home, and they were staying at a hotel, etc., etc. We got stuck in like 2-3 feet of mud. 3 of the 4 tires of the truck were stuck deep in mud and just kept sinking. Every time we tried to push, it was getting deeper and deeper. And only one wheel was out, and it was spinning, and we were stuck. And it was at night. It was raining. We could barely see a few feet in the distance, and the roads were full with water, and we were stuck between 2 roads in this grassy island thing in the middle. And the mud was just it was something else. And we spent 30 minutes to an hour of just pushing the truck, and it's getting deeper and deeper in. Kept trying to rev it, trying to reverse it, and nothing would work. We eventually had to leave the truck, which was scary. And then walk, and we're in the middle of nowhere. We're walking probably a few miles at least from the center of the city. We're kind of out on one of the side roads, and that was fun. We were physically and mentally exhausted from pushing. I remember calling 911 at one point, and after being on hold, for those who know, like generally in the U.S., you call 911, it's gonna be an instant. Like they're gonna get picked up right away and come within 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes maximum. Cops will be there, usually shorter, usually quicker. But I was on hold for like 10, 20, 30 minutes or something, which is unheard of. There's like 100 people in line ahead of me or more. And when the operator got to me, they were like, described the situation. I was like, oh man, this is not really an emergency, in the sense that it was scary. Definitely not your everyday, not your average day. But we were physically okay. It was not an emergency in that sense. So they had to, the cops never came, and we had to just deal with it. Left the truck. We were about to go and stay over the night at a church that was just a few feet away on the other side of the street. Kind of scary because it's an empty, dark church. No one else was there at night. But it was nice that they left the doors open. I think it was on purpose, and they wanted people to be able to see that as a shelter and be able to go there, and that was cool. We almost stayed there. We decided instead to walk, which is kind of dangerous. My friend almost ended up in the hospital because he was vomiting, and the water was hitting him, and something I'd seen out of a movie. But that happened. He ended up going to a shelter. I ended up making it almost home. But there was a big road that was filled like feet under. Close to my home, and I was exhausted at that point. We were walking, wearing our raincoats and everything. I ended up just staying at a hotel, and the people at the hotel were the ones we were trying to help with the medicine. So they ended up giving us a free night there. I stayed at a hotel, walked home the next day. It was something. Obviously, it's wrong to laugh about these things because, like I said, tons of people lost their homes and lost money, and people are still recovering. It'll probably be years till people recover. And you can think about the homeless. They were already homeless, and they're thinking, you're asking the government to repair your house or to give you money in exchange for your house, but we never had a house. So you can imagine from their point of view, they're homeless, and I don't know what they did when they were when the rain was coming and they didn't have any shelter. So it definitely isn't something to joke about. But overall, me personally, in my experience, it was an overall positive experience from what I learned. So I will try to focus on the positive, and obviously the negatives are, as you can imagine. If you think of Hurricane Katrina, which is probably the biggest thing since before Harvey, that's over 10 years ago. That's like 13 years ago. And I know for a fact that people are still recovering since. Some people haven't, and some people are living in trailer homes, and some people are still waiting on their aid from the government, and it's a mess. But I want to try to focus on the positive. Among them is the fact that I saw tons of nonprofits out there, tons of lawyers and volunteers and people that are trying to help out. Lawyers are trying to help out from the legal side, helping people with their houses. Organizations like Red Cross, I was able to spend some hours with them helping with their stuff. They have centers all over. Volunteers that come from all over this region, like Texas and Louisiana and so on, came to Houston. So this is the HQ of Red Cross in the South. That was awesome. And I was there just to see how they're doing. And obviously it's an old established organization. I got to spend some time with ICNA. That's Islamic Circle of North America, one of the biggest and oldest and most well-established Islamic organizations in the country. And they're there constantly at different natural disasters, right? That's ICNA Relief, one of the organizations under the umbrella. And I was able to volunteer with them a few days. They went to any house that had any water that touched it, which is tons of houses. They had to muck the houses, which is basically destroy the wood up to this point, the walls and everything below, and open it up, and there's the styrofoam or whatever you call it, the insulation. They had to pull that out because it would be filled with water, and then there would be fungus and moss and stuff growing in it. Tear that out so it doesn't destroy the entire home. So they did that for, imagine how many homes up to that, 3 feet all across the house and neighborhoods all over Houston. They spent months doing that. They probably finished up some months ago. I was there at least for a few times, and was able to even house some of those who came from Florida, part of ICNA Relief, to come to Houston, and they basically follow the storms where they go, follow the disasters, and the leader of this team, who stayed with me and talked to me about Katrina and some of his experiences there, and the volunteers and the leaders and so on, and what ICNA has done, and it's amazing stuff. Trying to focus on the positive. One last thing to leave with. The big picture of a natural disaster like this in a city like Houston, which is a major city, and the politics involved, people kind of take it in two ways. It's kind of like the cup half empty, half full. People focus on the fact that oh man, all these people were affected, and how about people of color, how about low income, etc., which is all reality. But taking it to an extreme can kind of hinder the process trying to improve things and trying to just focus on the negative, and it's not really that effective. I've seen that. I don't want to call it names or organizations, but then you also see the fact and the reality and people focusing on the positive, which is everyone can tell you this in Houston. No one knew their neighbors better than they did during Harvey and after Harvey and since Harvey. That's definitely a positive. The community was connected in a way that's never done, both in our community as Muslims and other communities, but also inter communities across Houston, and even connecting Houston to other cities and local, state, and federal government. But like on the ground, we saw people from all different neighborhoods and all different classes and all different colors, and everyone came together to help out in any way they could, and that was beautiful to see. Different organizations collaborated, again, mosques and churches and so on. It's worth mentioning, although it's not popular. Some of you might have heard on the news during that time, during Hurricane Harvey, that week or 2 weeks, people were talking about Joel Osteen in Lakewood Church, which is one of the biggest, largest congregations in the country in Houston and Texas. Very well known. I grew up listening to Joel Osteen and others like him. The media basically bashed him and others by saying that they didn't open up their church and they didn't allow people to come in and take shelter, and what kind of Christians are you, that whole story. And I get where they're coming from. In fact, I could actually tell you that actually wasn't true. It was, at best, the truth was twisted, if not an outright lie, because I went to that church and I saw hundreds and hundreds of boxes. I'm talking about huge, 70-pound boxes full of supplies, and tens of volunteers that were there that were helping out. It was actually one of the HQs, one of the headquarters of relief effort and so on across Houston, was Lakewood Church, and I went there and saw it myself and took pictures. They opened up a little bit late, but so did almost everyone else in Houston, and that was part of the process, and for many reasons, not to get into now. But anyway, so I want to warn people against being overly, sectarian or overly entrenched in their own party or their own system or their own politics or their own religion, whatever it is. Kind of see things from other people's point of view and try to get a big picture view, and try to be someone who builds bridges rather than tears them down. And the worst thing you can do is lie about another community or another person, another group. So there's a lot more to be said, obviously. I'll end with this. Definitely one of the themes of this whole story and this event of Hurricane Harvey and natural disasters in general and how to respond to them, so on, is service, right? Many of us have to recognize, I know my audience, a lot of you are young, a lot of you are healthy, well-educated, come from good families, etc., etc. I want to use the word privileged, but I also don't want to encourage anybody to use this word when speaking about others and kind of insulting others. We have this kind of toxic culture of saying, well, you're privileged, and all right, that's meaningless and it goes nowhere. But it is important to recognize if you are fortunate, if you are privileged in the sense that you don't have to worry about where your next meal is coming from. You don't have to worry about shelter. You don't have to worry about getting a proper education. Are you going to be able to economically, financially take care of yourself in the future, etc., etc. You don't have these worries. You're generally middle class or even upper class, and things are going well for you and your family and so on. It's good to be grateful. Good to recognize your privilege, if that's the right word, and part of your gratitude and gratefulness for what you have and what you've been given, what you've been blessed with, is to serve others, right? And there are so many ways to do so. A few of them mentioned in this video, but you find that there are those who are homeless in your city, and you can go and feed them. You can start an organization. There probably already are organizations. You just got to volunteer. You just got to spend a little bit of your time. You just got to leave your house. You just got to, take a break from whatever else you're doing. We all know that we're taking plenty of breaks already. I mean, all the time that we spend on Netflix and movies and games and shows and movies and music and whatever it is, just wasting time going by, entertainment culture. Instead, why don't you take a fraction of that, if not all of that, and when you're not working and not studying and doing other things that are productive and helping your family and whatever it is you're doing, the responsibilities and commitments, why don't you go out and spend an hour a week or so, or more hopefully, and volunteer your time. And if you have certain knowledge and skills and abilities, and you're gonna find there's plenty of ways you can use that to benefit others, right? So think beyond yourself, and get involved and be active and help others and care about others and be empathetic and sympathetic and try to see things from other people's point of view and try to make your life meaningful and purposeful and use what God has given you to help others. I mean, our whole entire faith, our religion, and those who know me know that that's where I come from, why I make these videos, why I talk about almost anything, how I see the world. It's my worldview. Can be summarized and broken down and simplified into really just worshiping God, loving God, knowing your Lord, knowing who God is, and serving others, taking care of others. So it's love God and serve His creation, love God and serve people. Very simple, and that's a meaningful, purposeful life, a life worth living. And our time here is short, right? Take life seriously because it can end at any moment, and appreciate what you have. There are many that don't have it, and that's it for now. Assalamu alaikum.